All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to present my personal choices for Game of the Year for each year of Nintendo's existence. Now, while a lot of these choices are Nintendo games, there are a few in there that are from other consoles, so you do have to bear that in mind. And now, why am I putting out this video, you may ask? Well, the Game Awards are going to be airing later tonight, and that, of course, is one of the big events that people look forward to every year. And, yeah, so that's why I'm choosing to put this out. So we are, of course, are going to start all the way back in the year 1985 because, well, that's the year Nintendo was first formed. Well, actually, no, Nintendo was formed like a lot earlier than 1985, but it was the year that their first like home console came out. That's what I'm trying to say. So we start things off in 1985 with probably the one of the most influential games ever, the original Super Mario Brothers, a game that pretty much revived the video game industry as a whole after the big crash that happened a couple of years before that. Hint, hint, ET for the Atari. And yeah, because anyone that's old enough to remember that game was so bad that it almost killed the video game industry entirely. And now, some 40 years later, the industry is still going and it is still thriving. So basically, a simple game, Super Mario Brothers, where you basically have to go through all the levels and rescue Princess Toadstool, as she was called then, from King Koopa, as he was called back then. Of course, nowadays we call them Princess Peach and Bowser, respectively. So my choice for 1985 is Super Mario Brothers, and of course you have to keep in mind that a lot of these picks for the 80s, they're all going to be Nintendo games because, well, Nintendo didn't really have any competition during the 80s. So for 1986, we go to another game that sparked a franchise that is still running today, and that, of course, is the original Legend of Zelda. And now, of course, Super Mario Brothers, of course, you remember, was a bit of a simple game, but Zelda, of course, a bit more complex with all sorts of dungeons to go through. The end goal, of course, being to get all the pieces of the Triforce and rescue Princess Zelda from Ganondorf. North. And, yeah. So, yeah. So, it is a pretty good game. Not gonna lie. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a very awesome game. Yeah, very awesome. And, of course, anyone that is into retro gaming, that plus Super Mario Brothers are definitely must plays. They're definitely must plays. Now, I think I have tried out the original Legend of Zelda via the Switch NES app. And I think there were also some challenges on Nintendo World Championship that required me to go to play Legend of Zelda for NES a little bit. But anyways, I don't really count that. Anyway, the next year, my birth year, 1987, Mega Man. Yes, a very cool action platformer, and while this cool franchise, and yeah, he was popular for a while, but I haven't really heard much about him lately, so not sure what's up with that, but I would rather not get into that. But Mega Man is the pick for 1987. Then we go to 1988, where we've got another cool action game, Contra. And Contra, of course, a first-person shooter where you have your gun, you fire at enemies, you try to kill them, then try to get to the end of the game. Pretty straightforward there. So, now we move on to 1989, and for the first time on our list here, we have a sports game, and that, of course, is the ever-popular Tecmo Bowl. And Tecmo Bowl is an awesome football game. It's great to play with some friends, and yeah, I'm not sure if that game has the actual real life players or rights to the real life players that were in the NFL at the time. I want to say that they probably did because back then, like, it was probably literally, it was like almost next to impossible to be able to do that. So they probably had like generic names or something. Again, I don't know. Then we go to 1990, which is Super Mario Brothers 3. Another classic game. Another classic game. You had 8 worlds, just like the first Super Mario Brothers, but there were more levels, which obviously meant more content. And believe it or not, the way the map is designed in Super Mario Brothers 3 would actually be the basis for how they would design much of the 2D Mario games moving forward. With that particular layout. So, yeah. So, basically the Super Mario Brothers 3 format. Still a really fun game. Definitely a great game to go through. Then the following year was the release of the Super Nintendo, and with it, of course, was the launch of Super Mario World, which, of course, like I said, was a launch title for the Super Nintendo. And what was really cool about that game was you actually got to ride Yoshi. Yes, Yoshi made his debut in that game, which was definitely pretty cool. Definitely a fun game to play. And like now, an honorable mention for that particular year goes out to Sonic the Hedgehog, because if you remember, Sonic the Hedgehog also came out that year on the Sega Genesis, and of course his brand is still going, and of course, let's not forget that next week, on December 20th to be exact, the Sonic 3 movie is coming out, and I'm definitely going to be seeing that. I'm not going to be seeing it on the opening day. I'm probably going to see it like the day after Christmas or something like that. But still, Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario World, both really good games. Then the next year, 1992, we have Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. And this, of course, was pretty much the Super Nintendo's Zelda entry. Much bigger than the NES games for Zelda, and yeah, very easy to get lost in those. And of course, the music is the music though is really good. Like even if you're not good at Zelda, and I fall in that category, like the music from those games is still really good. And speaking of games with really good music, the next year, 1993, Kirby's Adventure, which of course released for the NES, and one of the early entries for the Kirby franchise, and he too has been going on strong ever since the 90s. So yeah, Kirby, we love you, pal. Yeah, classic game. It's a really good game. It's a bit of a short game, but still a lot of fun to play through. So pretty solid for a late NES release. Then of course the following year, 1994, we have NBA Jam, which wasn't just a Nintendo game. It was available on all major consoles that were available at the time, well, except for the NES. Let's see, there was a Super Nintendo version, there was a Sega Genesis version, they even had an arcade version at one point, I do believe. And you could use all the actual NBA teams and players that were part of the league at that time. So that was always really fun to play. An honorable mention for that year going out to Donkey Kong Country, which celebrated its 30th anniversary earlier this year. And of course, if you remember, I did an LP of that game in March, pretty much as a bit of a filler project to buy time until Princess Peach Showtime released. But anyway, yeah, NBA Jam, really awesome game. And speaking of Donkey Kong Country, the next year, 1995, Donkey Kong Country 2, which I guess is a pretty good game. I wouldn't call it a bad game per se. I mean, I played a little bit of it. I haven't played through the whole thing, but from what I hear, it's still a pretty solid game. So, definitely one that I would recommend playing. Then, 1996, you have the release of the Nintendo 64, and with it, probably its most popular game by far, Super Mario 64. Yep, the which of course was the launch of 3D Mario, and there were no time limits for going through the levels in this game. You could just like go at your own pace to collect the stars. So, yeah, really fun time. And a game that I still kind of go back to on occasion because it is a lot of fun. Then the following year, we've got Mario Kart 64, which is the second entry in the Mario Kart series. Super Mario Kart, of course, debuted in 1992. And now, Mario Kart 64, yeah, this is another fun game to play with friends. You just watch out for that blue shell. But yeah, Mario Kart 64, always fun. Great racing game. Not really much to say about it. Then, 1998 is Pokemon Red and Blue. Now, and of course, these games were based off of of course, these games were the beginning of the Pokemon franchise. Back then, you had 150 or so Pokemon to collect, and then of course there was an anime series that was based off the game. Now, the game, from what I remember, came first. If you go by Japan, yeah, the game came first, and the anime came after that. It was a really fun game, and I actually did a Let's Play Pokemon Blue several years ago. So, yeah, always a fun time with that. Then, 1999, the original Mario Party. Yep, Mario Party franchise kicked off in 1999. And, yeah, always a great time. There were 8 boards to play through in this game. And this was a game that I played with my brother a lot. I think he ended up winning most of the time, but I'm pretty sure I got my fair share of wins in there. Still an awesome game. Then the following year, 2000, Mario Party 2, the sequel. Now, there were a few things that made this game better. First off, there was no control stick spinning mini games. They took those out after the first one because of, well, the lawsuits that happened. And secondly, depending on which board you played on in this one, you got to wear costumes. So, yeah, very fun game for sure. Definitely, Mario Party 2, always a great time. Then, 2001, we go to a handheld system for the first time, in this case the Game Boy Color, for Pokemon Crystal. This was basically the more enhanced version of Pokemon Gold and Silver, and from what I remember, this was the game where I ended up with level 92 Typhlosion at one point. But yeah, still a fun game. And you got to go through both Johto and Kanto in that one, so that was definitely very cool. 2002, Metroid Prime. That, of course, marked the beginning of the Metroid Prime series. I guess a bit of a reboot for Metroid, if you will, because there was a Metroid game on the NES. You had one on the Super NES, which was Super Metroid, but they never made a Metroid game for the N64. So, I guess this game was kind of a reboot for that franchise. And, by the way, the remastered version of that is available on the Nintendo Switch. So if you're a Metroid fan, then definitely check that out. For 2003, we have one that is not available, that at the time was not made available on any Nintendo platform. The original Kingdom Hearts. And this, of course, sparked the beginning of... This, of course, is a Disney-owned IP, and, of course, you had Sora as your protagonist. Such a fun game. Get to traverse all different kinds of Disney worlds in there, like for Lion King, Snow White, etc. Always a fun time. And the N-Man64, of course, is a big Kingdom Hearts fan. Probably a bigger Kingdom Hearts fan than me, if I'm being honest. And he has done Let's Plays of some of those games on his channel. So definitely check those out. Then for 2004, we go to arguably one of the best games ever made, which is Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. And yeah, a lot of people say that particular game is the best Paper Mario game in the entire series, and I'd have to agree. And that was probably why Nintendo decided to bring that game back earlier this year in a remastered version for the Nintendo Switch. And I have beaten that version, and there was a full playthrough of that on the channel, so definitely check that out if you want to relive that. But yeah, it's a fun time. The only gripe I have with that game is that it is a bit on the lengthy side, but then again, it's an RPG, so that's kind of par for the course with RPGs, unfortunately. But still a really solid game. And speaking of RPGs, we have another Mario RPG game for the 2005 year as the choice for 2005, which is Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. This is the second, of course, it's the second game in the Mario and Luigi series, with the first one being Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and coincidentally, this is actually the only game in the Mario and Luigi series that I have not even played. Like, I have played the other ones. I've even having a good time with the newest one that came out recently, which was Brothership, which, quite honestly, I think might actually be the first Mario and Luigi game I actually finished. All the other Mario and Luigi games that I've played, I have not beaten those. Superstar Saga, though, I've got a pretty decent way into, at least on the 3DS remake version. But yeah, still an awesome game with an interesting concept. And, yeah, really fun. Then, 2006, we have Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Which, of course, is a spin-off game. Now, what was unique about this game was it was actually available on 2 different systems, depending on the version you had. Because remember, just like with the original Pokemon games, this game, when it was originally released, had 2 versions. A red version and a blue version. In this case, it was Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team. Now, Red Rescue Team was on the Game Boy Advance. The Blue Rescue Team version, however, was released on the Nintendo DS for whatever reason, but used the Game Boy Advance graphics. So, honestly, it probably would have made more sense to put them both on the Game Boy Advance together, but, what do I know about those kind of decisions? Then 2007 is Super Mario Galaxy, which, of course, saw Mario, and that game, of course, takes place in outer space, and that game, of course, was the introduction to the character of Rosalina. So another solid game, one that, of course, I would highly recommend if you are looking into getting a Nintendo Wii. And speaking of Nintendo Wii, we have another Wii game for the following year, which is 2008. Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Another awesome game. I think I've played that on the channel a time or two. But yeah, it is an awesome game. It's part of Super Smash Bros. Nothing more needs to be said about that. For 2009's pick, we have another Mario and Luigi game, which is Bowser's Inside Story, the third game in the Mario and Luigi series, and Chuck Conroy is actually playing through this on his channel right now, so yeah, definitely a pretty good game, I would say. And I have seen some of the episodes of that Let's Play, not all of them, but from what I've seen, it's looking like pretty good. Although the episode where he was talking with a French accent half the time, ugh, cringe. 2010 is Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And this, of course, is the remake of Pokemon Gold and Silver. And I believe this game also has some of the Gen 4 Pokemon in it, because it was a remake and this came out during Gen 4, so it makes sense. But yeah, like I said, it's a remake of Gold and Silver, so nothing really needs to be said there. Then 2011, Kirby's Return to Dreamland. And another solid game, and one that got a port for the Nintendo Switch in early 2023. And anyone that loves Kirby will definitely love this game. I mean, I've played through some of the Kirby games. I did a Let's Play both the original version as well as the Switch version on the channel, so definitely check those out if you haven't. Then 2012, we have Kid Icarus Uprising, which is another solid game. And fun fact, that was actually the first Kid Icarus game to be released since the original NES version in the 80s. And to this day, we are still waiting for another Kid Icarus game. Come on, Nintendo! Anyway, then 2013, we have Pokemon X and Y, which was the first set of Pokemon games to be in 3D. And of course, also the first game to use the current version of the EXP share. If you've played through any of the current Pokemon games that have come after this, like Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you know what I'm talking about. 2014's pick is Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. I guess a bit of a generic title, but it's more or less the same game as the 3DS version, which also came out that year, but obviously on the Wii U, I think you would have more characters to choose from. Then in 2015, we have Splatoon for that year. And that, of course, is the first game in the Splatoon franchise. Unfortunately, you cannot play that online anymore because the online servers for the Wii U were shut down earlier this year. I believe the offline is still playable, but which includes the story mode. But a game like that, it's more fun online. Trust me. And in 2016, we have Uncharted 4 Thief's End, which was a PlayStation 4 release. Uncharted has always been such a great franchise. And honestly, it's kind of an underrated franchise, in my opinion. And there was also a movie that came out. When was it? I don't remember when it came out, but there was a Uncharted movie that came out that was based on the franchise. Yeah, I don't remember exactly when it came out, but it was a solid movie. Now we go to the Nintendo Switch's launch year, 2017, and for that year we have Super Mario Odyssey, which is an awesome game. Anyway, I've played that multiple times. It is an awesome time. No further explanation needed. Then for 2018, we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yeah, pretty much every character you can think of is here for that game, including Sora from Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, such an awesome game, and this was actually a game I talked about in a recent episode of my Revival series of video game reviews, so definitely check that out. Yeah, it is definitely a really fun time. My friends, Video Game Fan 1999 and Video Game Fan 96 are fans of that game, big fans of that game. I mean, I've played that too, but not quite as often. It's still really fun, though. Then 2019, we have Kingdom Hearts 3, which I think is probably one of the best games in the Kingdom Hearts series. I've played a little bit of it, not the whole way through, though, but it is still an awesome game. It's still a really fun game. Then 2020, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which of course is a Zelda spin-off, and basically a hack and slash game, and it's definitely more linear than regular Zelda games. So yeah, there's that. Then for 2021, we have Mario Party Superstars, which basically brought back classic Mario Party, and even though there weren't very many boards in that game, there are only 5 of them, it's still a fun game. But then again, all the boards that are in that one are HD remakes of older Mario Party games, so yeah, that's probably why there aren't very many in there. But still, it is a fun game. Then 2022, we have Pokemon Legends Arceus, which I have played, and it's fun, but it is Definitely more difficult than your typical Pokemon game. It's still very enjoyable though. Then last year, 2023, we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the first brand new 2D Mario game since the early 2010s, and a huge refresh that 2D Mario needed. It is so awesome, and one that I highly recommend without question. And now we get to this year, 2024, and I'll be honest, this year was actually kind of hard to pick one specific game because you had a lot of great titles that came out. Good examples being on the PlayStation side, you had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, there was Stellar Blade, there was Astrobot, and then of course on the Nintendo side you had the remake for Thousand Year Door, which I mentioned already, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Mario Party Jamboree, and of course the recently released Mario and Luigi Brothership. And I did have it narrowed down, and of those titles I listed, I had it narrowed to two this past weekend. Uh, and like I said, I still found it hard to pick just one because these were all solid games, like I mentioned. So I think for 2024, I'm gonna have it be a tie between Astrobot and Mario Party Jamboree. Both very good games, and both ones that I highly recommend. And they are both also up for nominations at this year's Game Awards. Jamboree for Best Multiplayer, and Astrobot is up for Game of the Year as well as a few other categories. Will both of those win their nominations? Well, that remains to be seen. Anyway, that is it for this video, and enjoy the Game Awards tonight.